and said, so when people get a positive, we like to track it. And that's how I found out. So I thought, okay, this is going to go one of two ways. One, I'm going to be in my room and I'm going to watch a lot of Netflix and I'm going to feel kind of flu-y and it's going to suck. But 10 days, 2 weeks, vacation from the kids, I'll be okay. Or I'm going to die. I didn't really think there was like a middle area because we didn't know anything else was going to happen. So they gave me lidocaine to drink and sent me home and said, if you can't breathe, call the ambulance, but don't come back here directly. And that was when I was like, this is like the plague. It's like I'm wearing a scarlet letter, you know? And so I thought, socially, this is going to get really interesting. But when I wasn't better after 3 weeks, I called my primary care physician's office again. And they said, well, I guess we could test you again, but we don't want to waste a test. If you can't breathe, call an ambulance. There's nothing else we can really do. So I just got really dejected then. And that was first week of May. And then in the middle of June, I had a friend recommend her primary care physician. So I went to that lady and she gave me she said my white blood cell count was out of control. Like she thought I should be in the hospital. And she gave me a Z-Pack and a prednisone shot in the booty. I felt great for about 36 hours. But then I crashed after the steroids wore off. And when I called her back in 2 weeks, she said, I think you have anxiety. If you want me to call a pulmonologist for you, I guess I can do that.
It's crazy that, how long we've been kind of working side by side, and I didn't know a lot of that stuff about you, and I'm just blown away that you went through all of that, and here you are doing everything you're doing. I never went to the hospital, but I did think I was going to die at one point when my oxygen levels started dropping and the chest pain was super unbearable. At one point, I remember this night so clearly. I was in bed with my husband and I was crying and crying and crying. And I was just so like out of it and fatigued and hallucinations. And I remember telling him, the next time I have any energy, I'm going to use it to make videos for my son.
Oh my gosh.
I knew that there was something wrong with me. Well, aside from all the crazy stuff that was happening, but when my husband got better in 12 days and I was still really sick, and yeah, when that happened, that was when I knew that something wasn't right. And at that point, I still hadn't heard about long haulers, even though some long haulers had already been sick for at least 3 months. And it's been over 9 months and I'm still waiting to recover fully.
I was in isolation in my bedroom. I'm going to see crying. I get really anxious. I'm in there. I'm in my bedroom now. This is not the safe room, like sanctuary type place it was before. And I think I'd love to just burn this house down and go somewhere else, because this should be like where I come to rejuvenate and rest and feel better. And I get in this bed and I'm like, oh, and I hadn't really thought about it until recently, and then wondered like how many other people don't feel safe in the place that they're supposed to feel the safest because of what they went through. And that's not limited to long haulers. Anybody who's had chronic illness or anything like that has to have felt that way. But it's funny how I'm slightly coming out of the fog a little bit at a time, and I have these realizations, and it's just like a slap.
So I struggled to find, like I said, a medical professional who had even heard of a long hauler or long COVID. Feeling like I'm going to die and having doctors shrug their shoulders was very traumatic. And also another struggle that, I don't even know how to explain this, but the chronic illness community understands, is that making doctor's appointments, clearing it with insurance, knowing what doctors go with what symptoms, and deciding which specialist to prioritize, because all of your symptoms need immediate attention. And then going to doctor's appointments and advocating for yourself at doctor's appointments, organizing what to tell them before you go. So it's ready, because you will not remember on the spot, remembering even what they say, and knowing what tests to ask for, and then begging for testing. Sometimes they won't give it to you. And then being disappointed after the doctor's appointment, and then having to do it all over again, like 30 times just to get help or acknowledgement. That was all counterproductive, because it's exhausting and it's not healing whatsoever to do all of that stuff. I mean, I could barely walk to the bathroom or take a shower, and here I am trying to organize all these doctor's appointments, and my brain doesn't want to cooperate and my body doesn't want to cooperate. So that was, I mean, aside from the symptoms itself, just going to the doctors and trying to get doctor's appointments was a huge struggle.
I've met people in this group that I don't think I would have met through other channels in our area, because we all are very different, but we get it now. And that's one of the things I'm actually worried about going back into like society as a whole. Like reconnecting with people who don't get it. It's already hard. But I know I've got these friends now, and we are all like, oh my gosh, when can we go see each other? Like my daughter had a tonsillectomy earlier in the month, and Jessica drove up to my house and just dropped a birthday present off for her because it was in the middle of her birthday at my house. And just like, she didn't have to do that. And I'm like crying through the window, like, it's you, your person.
So sweet.
And I've got a 3-year-old, she's got a 3-year-old, and my 3-year-old was like, can I have your son? Because he's so desperate for a friend. We're so desperate to get them together. But I think that community feels even more like a community, like the overall long haul community, and not just that, but people with chronic illnesses who have taken us, who don't have the spoons for it, they don't have the energy for it, they're exhausted already, but they've seen us flailing, and they're like, they could have just been like, oh yeah, well, good luck with this. But they've taken us under their wings and adopted us, and that community is wonderful. But when you know it's somebody that eventually you're going to be able to go sit in the park with, and it just makes a difference.
I truly hope that the world learns how to coexist better. Every story is different, perspectives matter. So like when we are problem solving for the world as a whole, compassion and the high road, I feel like, should be at the heart of every decision. And I hope for that.
I have been magnificently ignorant about the things that people with chronic illness and disabilities have had to endure and fight against forever. And the way that this has impacted, gosh, just being surprised by what I've learned about society, the entitlement that exists that makes other groups of people seem expendable has been infuriating and one of the hardest things to deal with. And I have been working really hard to educate myself in ways to help advocate for that, to be different. Like Jessica said, but there is good to balance that, and it can be hard to see sometimes. My hope for us as a family is that this improvement continues and I can go do stuff with them like a real family and have fun. But also that we see some improvements in the way that doctors treat patients of every ailment or color or gender or anything. I don't think I'd be here without these groups and the people I've met on Instagram and in the larger groups and the leadership that other people have been able to show. And it's exhausting to me. I can't imagine how other people are doing what they're doing and creating art, and it blows my mind. So that helps a lot. This group has helped a lot. So much, just seeing people be people and honest and kind.